two elementals,
Mhm.
camphor versus stagnation. What would be the difference in how you use the two?
Both are super good. The thing with camphor is it's very good for kind of cleansing the space, and it does have a cleansing effect that's kind of like a little bit more specific to certain kinds of elementals. And so
Oh,
the stagnation blend is like a very like general like a general cleanser, but
okay.
camphor, I don't think I've ever talked about this before. I think I've alluded to it, but you know, there's one kind of elemental, which, an elemental is just simply an energy we attract from the environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever is going on with body processes, emotional makeup, our physical makeup, our mental makeup, we're attracting energies from the environment to bring these things into form. Whatever we feel intensely attracts elementals from the environment, or think repetitively enough attracts energy from the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go through and we do our cleansing, or when we bless the earth, or when we do our meditation, or when we stimulate lymphatic movement, it displaces the lower vibrational elementals. And so stagnation is tied to really stimulating lymphatic movement along the spine. And so it's about like clearing the elementals off that are, you could say, a bit more deeply embedded into your physiology or your spine. And so we're actually tonight going to do a little thing on the spine, not with stagnation, but with something else, just because of it's good for our immune system as well. And so there is one elemental that actually feeds or gets agitated by spiritual energy.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so, yeah,
that
and
one.
so I've kind of alluded to it, but this is why, like, when people, like in different churches, when they do exorcisms and stuff, where they have to be trained, because if you just try to come at it really super hard with like spiritual energy and you're just doing prayer, you
Mm-hmm.
actually make it worse. And a lot of times in energy circles, like with pH and things like that, when people say oh, I feel like I'm expelling a lot, it's that elemental is agitated,
It
actually.
moves around. Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
moves around, it gets agitated, it's super congesting to like the solar plexus or wherever it's at. And camphor actually helps to neutralize that one particular kind of elemental. That's I don't make
Oh,
a
okay.
big deal out of it, but like
Mm-hmm.
that's because it's to the general public. They're like, "What are you talking about, elementals?" And then you're talking about this weird one, So I don't go too deep on some things, but they use camphor in clearing spaces where like acts of violence have happened, or where like houses are haunted or something of that nature. And a lot of times that's just a bunch of elemental activity. Like, so you're going through and you're cleaning that up. But even in practices like, say, devotional practices to like Ganesha, and I think even to Vishnu, they'll burn little chunks of camphor in that devotional practice. And again, it's about overcoming obstacles and things like this. But if you think about what are the obstacles are the conditioning. The conditioning is what normal people call, what we call elementals. Like, elementals and conditioning are just two sides of the same coin. So we have like kind of an etheric or energetic explanation of what conditioning is, where most people just see conditioning of you've had these experiences, you've had repetition of these experiences, they've been reinforced by either strong emotions or repetitive thought, and this kind of conditions the person to have certain responses in situations. The energetic explanation of this is all of that, but because you've had those strong emotions or those experiences or that repetitive thought, you've attracted elementals from the environment, and you're mixing it with the thought energy or the emotional energy to help bring it into form or create a thought form. And so the class that we're doing in Seattle there when I'm up there in a couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
um, is a deeper way of even unwinding that in you. But also what happens, like if you think about it, like, okay, you have the thoughts inside you, you're thinking something repetitively, or you have the strong emotion, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
things that are inside you, but there's also still external events that have happened that are impacting you to a great degree. Like, so say you had an traumatic event, or you did something, you could say even you did something and it was super embarrassing or something. Like there's part of you that is like, I'm turning away from that, or I'm trying to manage that, or I don't want to see it. But if you think about it, it kind of stimulates a certain response, right? So there's either things up that are floating around your head, like, how in cartoons they see little balloons above somebody's head that has the words in them, that's like, their dialogue.
Yeah.
But like if you recall an event and you can feel something, an emotion, a thought, engage something, it's because there's still a connection, and there's still either the energy of thought mixed with elementals, or just the elementals themselves left in those things. And so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times what causes people things like anxiety and fears, and even affects like the things that they think about, is actually the tie to these things. And so when we did that class at the beginning of December, where we went through and we unwound the health rays,
Mm-hmm.
that was an important piece to kind of go through and put into motion. And if you had that class or didn't, this next piece, it can stand on its own, but it's building on the Metatron class, the health ray class, the Phoenix technique. All these things were like moving forward to this thing, which is going to be a completely different approach to how we've done classes, the class that we do in Seattle there. And we're still going to be inhaling oils and doing all that kinds of things, but a little bit less patterns and a little bit more of working the inner and the outer at the same time. And so it's a bit of a different approach, but I find it to be more deeply psychologically healing. And sometimes why somebody doesn't respond to normal treatment, be it holistic or orthodox medicine, is tied to this component. Like it is tied to this, and so you see this in really extreme situations where somebody was traumatized by, like a accident or a shooting or something like that. But we have much smaller, much lower grade things that are just kind of peppered in our auric field out in the periphery, that even going through and doing meditation and healing just doesn't clean them out, because they are thought energy mixed with elementals. They're a thought form, but they're more than just a thought form. It's like a cluster of thought forms. Like it's like a beehive kind of, where
Uh-huh.
it's a bunch. And so um it starts to be, it could be like a group thought form, or it could be, but it's like what they call in the Middle East and in the Jewish tradition, like a genie. And so, genies can
It
be
got
made.
legs.
What's that?
It's got legs.
Yeah, it's got legs. And
Yeah.
so there's ways of deconstructing these things that have happened to us or that we've thought, because a lot of what we think is tied to past experiences, but it's also tied to other people's influence. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also tied to the collective unconscious. Like it's not just we're thinking all our own thoughts. We're thinking our own thoughts and a bunch of other stuff. And we're trying to like filter it all out. And so this practice that I'm going to be showing you guys is more about making it so that you're processing your own thoughts and not taking on or processing other people's stuff. Because a lot of it is, like, you could even say the generational stuff that we started to tap into in the Metatron class. There's thought processes that go down through the generations that aren't necessarily tied to genetics, but it's tied to like an energetic genetics that kind of goes down, or energetic makeup. And sometimes we're just locked into that thought process because of how old and how strong that thought form is. And sometimes you can wrestle with it and diminish it, or sometimes you can just disengage it and step away from it. And with what we're going to be doing, you don't even really need to choose. You either heal it or you step away from it. Like it's not something you even have to figure out. You're just going to be able to do it.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
We're
I mean, we
buckling up for
started
that
going down
class.
this road. We started going down this road
Yeah.
with the Sandalphon class. And there's still something I haven't talked about with the Sandalphon class. We are still going to do one more study group with Sandalphon at some point. But we need to do this class in Seattle first, and then I'll put it out.
Oh, so excited.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're so
Greg,
welcome.
one more